Welcome to another episode of a podcast that's fine with me. Today we're talking about big, large families. And I don't know if you have any opinion on the topic, and I feel it might be a little bit sensitive for some of you guys. But I got my thought around when I was watching one of the videos from a YouTuber. I don't remember the exact surname, but she was Hannah. She is Hannah. And she's talking about TikTok. She's talking about MLMs or, all of it. And she was discussing one of the families that has, I guess, 8+ kids or maybe like 10+ kids. It caught my attention because they are not just living in a house, they're traveling in a small bus and they're filming how they're so happy and they have lots of kids and how they introduce every single time a new kid. And there's a whole TikTok page devoted to this particular topic. And while watching this, a lot of people are criticizing this family for not living in a real home. A lot of people are praising them for having a lot of kids and they're having great, let's say, support for that. And they are gaining a lot of views, millions of views to be exact. And I guess I watched Nara Smith and she has 3 kids, if I'm mistaken, 2 of her own kids and 1 from the previous marriage from her husband. This is like a husband's kid. I don't know if she's just like parenting, co-parenting, or doing something else. I have no idea, and it's none of my business practically. And before we dive into this topic with large and big families, I want to tell you a couple of years ago, I went to China and I lived there a year, and we had a multicultural group from all over the world. We had people from Italy, from France, from Russia, from United States, all over the world, and Switzerland, if I'm mistaken, as well. I can't judge people based on a couple of people in my group, but we had a task, I guess, to tell how many kids were okay in our countries. For those who are new on my channel and you have no idea, I'm from Russia. And while we were discussing, I told that Russia has approximately 1, maybe 2 kids, but right now the demographic, let's say, pit that happened in 90s is causing a lot of problems because people my age, like under 30, a little bit over 30, don't really want to give birth. And depends on, I don't know, different factors and multiple factors. And I haven't gotten birth either, but my husband and I were planning in the future a kid, and it's a little bit different story to talk and discuss. But for now, I know a lot of Chinese, they're not interested in kids, specifically about policy that happened about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or even earlier, later. There was a fine for those who had more than 2 kids, and now no one is giving birth. And there is a speculation that China might have added some numbers to a real population number. And in 50s, 60s, probably, if I'm mistaken, they had one number of people in China. And over a decade, maybe even less than a decade, the number was twice bigger than 10 years ago. And people are not buying this, but okay, let's say there are over like 2 billion Chinese in the world. That's why they're not tempting to give birth as much as it used to be, though I'm not really sure. And of course, there were people from France, and I was shocked when 2 girls said the average kids in French, there were like 5 kids in a family, and I was like, wait, are you talking about France? Like, not about China? And I was shocked. Then Switzerland, if I'm mistaken, this guy mentioned something about 5 kids as well, or maybe 2 kids. I don't remember the numbers, but I feel like it's important to know every single country has its own limits and its own standards, as well as there is a policy throughout social media and internet where people are like anti-babies, anti-families, some feminists. And there are people who are obsessed over kids and would have thousands of kids if they could. But it's your personal preference, in my opinion. But let's go back to the family with lots of kids. And I see not only one family, but a lot of them over TikTok showing their lifestyle, how they live. And I come from a large family, I'd say. Not really large, because it depends on not only kids are counting, but I guess with generations living under the same roof. I remember when my mom, she got divorced and she moved back in with her parents. My mom lived with her sister, her husband, and my cousin, and I lived with my mom, so we were like 5 of us in one small apartment with my grandma and my grandpa. In total, 7 people under one roof. That's why we had to live in one room each. And later on, my and uncle with cousin. They moved out, and then she gave birth to my second cousin. And for as long as I could remember, I lived on the same roof with my grandma and my grandpa, and I was lacking my own privacy in my own room because I had to live with my grandma. I wasn't suffering or anything like this, but my grandpa lived in his own room, my grandma and I lived in the same room, and my parents, they lived in the third room. Then my mom, she gave birth to my sister, and then years later, when I was over 20, my mom gave birth to my brother. It was an expected pregnancy. That's why, yeah, what happened, that happened. And again, there were 7, I guess, of us living under the same room, under the same roof. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. But my grandpa died in 2016, and in total there were like 6 of us. And then I started dating my husband, but I was 16. My younger brother wasn't even in the picture. So yeah, back and forth, back and forth. There were always a lot of people in the apartment. And my husband and I, we moved out in, I guess, 2019. And yeah, my sister, she sort of inherited my room. I moved out from my grandma's room when my grandpa, and then my grandma took my grandpa. So it was really, really messy and really hard. And I understand what it's like to live in a big family. And that's probably the reason why I can't say I want to have my own kids as soon as possible. And that is the problem. My mom, she would never ask me to babysit kids. Most of the time, she would take care of her kids herself and ask probably my grandma to help with that. Of course, I helped, but it wasn't just a babysitting job where I would literally raise my brother and my sister. Though I witnessed a lot of things like crying, baby crying, all of this, diapers, all of it. And that was the main ick for me for a long period of time, why I didn't really want to have my own kids for some period of time. And I can't say I am looking forward to have my own kids. It's more like I'm a little bit scared to have my own kid, but it's something that I would really love to explore because my mom and everyone says, your kid is your kid. It's nothing like your brother, sister, or someone like neighbor's kid. It's your own kid, and you're going to adore and love him or her. And it's weird for me. I know a lot of kids coming from huge families, and especially the elders, like older kids, they would always have to babysit the youngest. If we're talking about large family, like 5+, 6+, maybe 7+ kids, most of the time that's going to be the case. And most of the time when I talk to this, let's say, parents, and when I talk to these kids, not kids anymore, they say they don't really want to have their own family because they're so tired of babysitting. The kids from their parents, they felt like they were their kids. And I understand this because most of the time, 7 kids is almost impossible to raise them and be insane. Well, I know a lot of kids later on from big families and large families, they don't really mind, and they want to have the same atmosphere as they used to have when they were kids. I don't know. There are always going to be pros and cons, but in my opinion, that is a little bit, I don't really want to say words to offend anyone or anything, but I know a lot of large families, especially in Russia, they give birth to 5+ kids to get a free apartment or to get a free house. And that is the case. I know a lot of women, they wouldn't just give birth because they love that much kids. Not all of them, but most of the time they want to get something for free from the government, all of the money, all of the support that they can provide, and all of it that government actually is giving and is providing. And it's so weird that you're kind of trading your kids for the services that you can get from the government. And it's weird. You're not literally trading them, of course not, but in a way, if you can see the line that I'm going to. And when I watched the video from Hannah on YouTube and about these TikTokers with 8 kids, I understand the worrying about the family and about the whole situation that is going on in the bus. First of all, why would you live in a bus? I understand that they see a lot of things, sightseeing and going through states, and that's one thing, and it's great. But a little bit different side of the story is they have no social gatherings, they have no actual friends, in my opinion, and their family is the only one that they're stuck in. Another issue that I see not only in this bus, but most of the time, a lack of space, the one that I faced when I was a kid. I always wanted to have my own room, and I always wanted to have my private space. And I wasn't allowed in some ways, not because I wasn't allowed, but because we had no space whatsoever. And I really loved my parents' house, my country house, because I had my own room. Every single person in my family had and has its own room, and that is the huge benefit of this house, that I can go in my private place and just be alone and reflect on something that has happened to me. I love when there's like gatherings. I love talking to people. I love talking to my mom, to my cousin. Whenever they come, I love entertain. I love hosting, let's say. But at the same time, I get tired of it pretty quickly as well. You can tell I am sort of trying to pursue an influencer path and sort of job. Most of the time, it requires me to stay home for a long period of time, and I try to post, and I told you numerous times, 6 times a week. That's why I can't go out throughout the week as much as I want to, and I don't really get to see the real society, let's say, and chat and hang out with my friends every single time. It's the same way as a job, a real job. But it's lacking people from the job. I can't say I'm missing the part with people. Sometimes I get tired of them, and sometimes they're literally pissing me off. Certain people, not my friends, even my friends, I feel like most of my friends, I really love them, I adore them, but would I really want to live with them? I'm not really sure. And going back to the topic of large and big families, you have no choice to leave. Maybe, I know a lot of, just when I read some articles about, lying in a bathroom and that you can be in a quiet space. Most of the time you wake up because someone woke up earlier and, all of it. But I feel we're lacking some understanding that not every single sibling is going to be your favorite. And most of the time you have absolutely different characters and you might not be friends. And you need your own friends most of the time you do. So assuming that your siblings are going to get along, if you have 8+ of them, yeah, I believe there are probably going to be 1 or 2 of them who are going to be just like really like bestie and good friends. And some of them are just going to be a part of the family and they want to spend their own time together. In this situation, I'm always like, did you ask the rest of the family if they want to babysit your newborns, if they want to babysit the kindergarten or something like that? One thing is help. Another thing, when you're literally making them babysit. I have a great example, not really like our neighbors. There is a woman, she has 3 or maybe 4 kids. I don't really count someone's kids. She has 3 or 4 kids, and her daughter, she's probably, if I'm mistaken, 10 or maybe she's 12, and she was, a couple of years ago, she was babysitting her brother, who was back then probably 5, and he would always try to be around his sister, and sister always had an issue that she couldn't spend enough time with her friends. Because every single time mom was like, okay, here's your brother, and you have to, or maybe even must, see how he's doing and probably play with him. And most of her friends, they don't really want to be nannies for her brother, and they would just skip and have the best time of their life, and she's going to be literally stuck with her brother, which is okay in some cases if she doesn't mind that. But I feel like her mom ripped her off her childhood and made her be a real mother. And every single time my mom and I talking about this neighbor, she's like, every single time this girl, she had no childhood because she was literally babysitting all the time her brothers. Later on, she had another brother, so it always got to the point where she had to babysit someone. And it's unfair to these kids. It's unfair to these kids that they have no privacy. And of course, I understand sometimes you have no choice. You don't have a lot of money to purchase an apartment, to have private space for each and every person. I totally get it. But seeing 6 people living in one room, and they were like talking about double beds in one room, 6 double beds. It's just like 6 kids, different age, have to live in one space, and there's no privacy for them. Where should this person go? I believe when they're traveling, one of the eldest kids will go somewhere a little bit further from the bus and just enjoy the nature, I believe, or something like that. I have no idea. I try not to be judgmental. I try not to sound judgmental. Am I judgmental? Probably a little bit, because in this case, kids were not asked if they really wanted to live in a sorority or maybe in a dorm. Another really great point to bring up from my side of view, from my point of view, is food. Can you imagine how much food they're consuming every single day? And who's cooking that? How are you finding this time to cook and have a newborn and then educate the rest of the kids? Because in their case, the family is not going to school. The kids are not going to school. They're not socializing. And mom has to teach 3 or 4 different classes, which I doubt. Most of the time, I feel they're just have to live themselves by their own. Probably she's explaining something for someone who's in the kindergarten, or maybe a little bit older, maybe first, second grade, but later, like, you can deal yourself. It's just from my point of view. And who's doing the other things like laundries? I bag their kids. I don't mind. I think kids should help at home. They should help you with lots of things. The only problem and the only issue is, are they helping, or they're literally doing this as their duties every single day as housewives, like homekeepers, anything, like, as a job. Let's call it this, as a real job. I don't know. And I bet most of it is done by the elders. Not elders, but the old ones who are maybe over 12, maybe over 11. They're probably doing all of this stuff. I don't know, guys. What do you think? I might not be the best person to judge here because I have no kids, first of all. And second of all, I have no experience in motherhood, but I do have experience living in a big, large family. That's why, I don't know. In my opinion, it's something, I don't know. Maybe it's about faith, that people are like the God thing. Is it a God thing? I don't know. But let me know in the comments, what do you think, guys? Do you have your own stories to share? What are the pros and cons living together? Are you literally bonding over dinner every single time, every single day? Or you literally got tired of this whole situation and this whole mess? Do you have to live with your, I don't know, siblings? Something like this. Let me know one more time in the comments, and in the description box I have my mail where you can share your stories. Love you all so much, and I'm going to see you in my next podcast. Bye bye.